The prudent man does not seek pleasure, but freedom from pain. What if the secret to happiness isn't pursuing joy, but avoiding pain? What if the philosopher who declared all life is suffering actually wrote the most practical guide to living well? Welcome back to The Will to Wisdom. Today, we're exploring one of philosophy's most fascinating contradictions. Arthur Schopenhauer, the man, dubbed the philosopher of pessimism, who saw existence as a continual deception and a task, a drudgery to be worked through, also penned a surprisingly practical work called The Art of Being Happy. But here's the twist. Schopenhauer wasn't trying to make you happy in the way you might expect. He was proposing something far more radical and perhaps far more achievable. He argued that true happiness isn't about gaining something positive. It's about losing something negative. It's not about accumulating pleasures. It's about eliminating pain. This concept, which he called negative happiness, turns everything we've been taught about the good life completely upside down. And the more you understand it, the more sense it makes. In this deep dive, we'll explore Schopenhauer's revolutionary framework through real examples from his own life moments of suffering that became wisdom, failures that revealed profound truths, and a philosophy that might just change how you approach every challenge you face. Because sometimes, the most surprising insights come from the most unexpected places: context and negative happiness. As your thought partner on this journey, think of me as a consultant, helping you navigate these complex ideas. We'll break down Schopenhauer's perspective, look at what it means in practical terms, and explore how even a pessimistic outlook can yield valuable insights for living more effectively. Let's start by grounding ourselves in the broader landscape of Schopenhauer's philosophy. Schopenhauer's core idea, outlined in The World as Will and Representation, is that the world can be viewed in two fundamental ways: as representation and as will. Representation is the world as it appears to us, filtered through our minds, structured by space, time, and causality. This is the world of objects, phenomena, and our everyday experiences. But beneath this veil of appearance, Schopenhauer posits a deeper reality: the will. This isn't the individual, conscious will like choosing what to eat. Instead, it's a blind, striving, impersonal force that forms the inner essence of everything. In living beings, it manifests as the will to live, an inherent drive, not just to survive, but to propagate and perpetuate existence. According to Schopenhauer, this will is the source of all suffering. Why? Because the will is characterized by endless, insatiable striving, always seeking, always wanting, driven by a fundamental lack. It's like being perpetually thirsty, where every sip only briefly quenches the thirst before it returns. Schopenhauer uses powerful metaphors from Greek mythology to illustrate this condition. We are on the revolving wheel of Ixion, constantly drawing water from the sieve of the Danaids, eternally yearning like Tantalus. Any satisfaction we achieve is fleeting, because new desires arise almost immediately to plague us. And if the striving ceases, we are tormented by boredom. This relentless cycle of wanting, brief satisfaction, and renewed desire, or boredom, is, for Schopenhauer, the fundamental condition of existence for any willing being. So, where does happiness fit into this picture? If life is fundamentally characterized by suffering and striving, how can we possibly attain happiness? This is where Schopenhauer introduces his radical concept of negative happiness. His core argument is simple, stark, and counterintuitive to how we usually think about happiness. Positive versus negative happiness. We typically think of happiness as a positive state, a feeling of joy, pleasure, contentment, or the fulfillment of goals. We pursue experiences and possessions that we believe will bring happiness into our lives. But Schopenhauer argues this view is fundamentally mistaken. Drawing on insights from Aristotle and Epicurus, He contends that pleasure is only the negation of pain, and that pain is the positive element in life. Suffering, lack, and pain, these are real, tangible, and positive experiences. They seize our attention completely, like a sore or painful spot that makes us forget our overall health. One frustrating experience can overshadow many successful ones. Pleasure, by contrast, is merely the removal of pain or lack. It is the temporary cessation of suffering, the fleeting moment when the will encounters no resistance. It is not a positive gain, but simply the absence of a negative condition. That's why pleasure can never last very long. New pains and new desires inevitably arise. Therefore, Schopenhauer concludes that true, positive, and perfect happiness is impossible. What we can realistically hope for is merely a state comparatively less painful. Happiness equals absence of pain. In Schopenhauer's view, happiness is a negative conceptus state of freedom from pain and suffering. The highest good, if we are to speak of one, must involve the denial of the will, the cessation of desire and craving, the elimination of ego, and a detached contemplation of the world as a whole. This is a bold and uncompromising claim, deeply rooted in his metaphysical outlook. Now, let's shift gears and bring this down to earth. You might be thinking, okay, that's a fascinating if somewhat bleak framework, but how does this help me in my actual life, here and now? This is where Schopenhauer's Eudemonology comes in. It's designed as a practical guide, not for chasing elusive positive happiness, but for skillfully navigating life's inevitable suffering with the goal of achieving that comparatively less painful state. Schopenhauer's own life, marked by unique challenges and insights, can be seen as a series of case studies that illustrate these principles. Remember, we're approaching this like consultants analyzing the data, his life and writings, to extract actionable insights. Case Study 1. The Prison of Life. Early impressions. Schopenhauer had a privileged, yet challenging upbringing. His father, a wealthy merchant, intended for him to follow in his footsteps, exposing Arthur to the world of business and travel from an early age. During one such journey, while still a teenager, Schopenhauer visited the infamous Bagne of Toulon, a brutal French penal colony. Historical images or artistic renderings of penal colonies, he recorded the experience in his travel diary. He observed prisoners who were chained, malnourished, and subjected to hard labor. He described their shameful, terrible appearance, their desperate glances, and their agonized, plaintive sounds. But Schopenhauer didn't stop at mere observation. He reflected, "The fate of these unfortunates seems to me far more terrible than a death sentence." Years later, this visceral encounter with human misery re-emerged in his philosophy. He came to view the world itself as a kind of penal colony. To him, human existence universally was a task, a drudgery, to be worked through. Experience and philosophy. What's the lesson here? From our consultant perspective, Schopenhauer's philosophy doesn't arise purely from abstract speculation. It's rooted in a direct, unflinching confrontation with the reality of suffering. The practical takeaway is the importance of acknowledging and understanding the fundamental difficulties inherent in life. Don't fall prey to the senseless delusion or naive optimism that life is meant to be effortlessly enjoyable. By recognizing life's inherent challenges, its nature as a task, we set more realistic expectations, which is the first step in avoiding the pain of disappointment. Case Study 2. The Cost of External Friction, the Marquet Incident. Despite his focus on universal suffering, Schopenhauer's life was also marked by specific, sometimes petty, personal conflicts that caused him considerable distress. One infamous incident involved his neighbor in Berlin, a seamstress named Louise Marquet. Schopenhauer, famously sensitive to noise, was disturbed by her loud conversations. His attempts to get her to leave the shared floor escalated and eventually led to a physical altercation. Marquet sued him, and in 1825, after a legal battle, Schopenhauer was ordered to pay her a lifelong annuity, which he continued to do until her death years later. At first glance, this might seem like a minor anecdote, but it illustrates a key point in Schopenhauer's practical philosophy. He observes that even the petty vexations of life that are constantly happening insignificant disputes, unbecoming conduct in other people, petty gossip, and many other similar annoyances can significantly disturb our peace and destroy comfort. They are moments where our will meets resistance. From a eudemonology perspective, this case underlines the importance of minimizing external sources of pain and frustration. While we can't control everything, like noisy neighbors, the key is to develop strategies to keep such annoyances at arm's length and push them out of our way, like stones that lie in the road. And upon no account, think about them or give them a place in our reflections. The Marquet incident shows how failing to do so can lead to prolonged, tangible suffering, the annuity payments, and the loss of peace of mind. Case Study 3. The Illusion of Reputation. Academic Struggles. Schopenhauer desperately sought academic recognition early in his career. After completing his doctorate, he attempted to establish himself as a university lecturer in Berlin. Famously, he scheduled his lectures at the same time as the immensely popular philosopher G.W.F. Hegel, whom Schopenhauer considered a charlatan. The result? Hegel's lectures were full. Schopenhauer's were nearly empty. His academic career never took off, leading to deep disappointment and a lifelong antagonism toward what he called university philosophy. This experience reveals a central distinction in both his core philosophy and his eudemonology, the difference between what one is and what one represents. What one is refers to your inner world, your personality, character, health, knowledge, and thoughts. What one represents refers to how others see you, your reputation, social status, and fame. Schopenhauer insists that the chief source of human happiness is internal, rooted in what we are. External factors like reputation are secondary and much less important. His academic failure, though painful, reinforced this truth. The lack of external recognition mattered less than the enduring value of his ideas and inner life. The practical lesson: don't invest too heavily in external validation or reputation. What one represents is tied to vanity, dependent on the fleeting opinions of others, and puts you in a state of sad slavery. Instead, focus on cultivating your inner world, your character, knowledge, and health, because that is the most stable and reliable source of well-being. The foundation of well-being, the priority of health. Perhaps the most straightforward and practical rule Schopenhauer offers in his Eudemonology is the paramount importance of health. He states bluntly, at least 9/10 of our happiness rests solely upon health. Why such emphasis? Because cheerfulness of mood primarily depends on it. When you're healthy and cheerful, even unfavorable external circumstances seem more bearable than the happiest conditions when you're unhealthy and anxious. Health, and the cheerfulness that comes with it, can replace everything else, but nothing can replace them. Without health, external fortune is meaningless. This leads to one of Schopenhauer's most powerful comparisons. A healthy beggar is happier than a sick king. The lesson is clear and practical. It is the greatest of all follies to sacrifice one's health for anything whatsoever, for acquisitions, for learning, for fame, for promotion, not to mention sensual pleasure and fleeting gratifications. Prioritize health above all else. This means regular movement, time outdoors, sufficient sleep, all of which Schopenhauer incorporated into his own disciplined routine later in life. This rule aligns perfectly with his concept of negative happiness. Prioritizing health is prioritizing the absence of physical and mental suffering, which Schopenhauer identifies as the primary goal. Conclusion: the principles of eudemonology and negative happiness. These case studies from Schopenhauer's life and writings illustrate the core principles of his eudemonology and the concept of negative happiness. They show a philosophy that, though grounded in a seemingly pessimistic view, yields profoundly practical insights for managing expectations and focusing our energy where it can do the most, good minimizing suffering and cultivating our inner life. The key lessons from Schopenhauer's Art of Being Happy. 1. Rethink happiness. Understand that perfect, positive happiness is unattainable. True well-being is better understood as the absence of pain and suffering. 2. Prioritize pain avoidance. Focus not on chasing fleeting pleasures, but on strategically avoiding the many sources of pain and misfortune in life. Sacrificing potential pleasure to avoid pain is often a wise exchange. 3. Manage expectations. Recognize the inherent difficulties and disappointments of existence. Don't let excessive joy lead to greater pain when illusions fade. Limit your sphere of action to give less opportunity to misfortune. 4. Value inner wealth. Understand that your inner state, what you are, your personality, character, health, intellect is far more crucial to well-being than what you have, possessions, or what you represent, reputation, fame. 5. Guard your health. View health as the single most important factor in happiness and protect it fiercely. Never sacrifice it for lesser gains. And there you have it, Schopenhauer's revolutionary approach to happiness. Not through chasing fleeting pleasures, but through the strategic elimination of suffering. Not through naive optimism, but through clear-eyed understanding of life's true nature. It's a philosophy that feels both ancient and urgently modern. In a world that constantly tells us to want more, do more, be more, Schopenhauer whispers a different truth. Perhaps the path to peace lies not in addition, but in subtraction. But this is just the beginning. We've only scratched the surface of Schopenhauer's practical wisdom. In our next episode, we'll dive deeper into his specific strategies for dealing with other people. Because if you think his views on happiness are radical, wait until you hear what he has to say about human relationships. This raises a question I'm genuinely curious about. Have you ever experienced what Schopenhauer calls negative happiness? Those moments when the absence of pain felt more profound than any pleasure? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Below, your experiences often illuminate these philosophical concepts in ways that surprise me. And if you're finding value in these explorations of practical wisdom, consider joining our growing community of deep thinkers. There's something powerful about wrestling with these profound questions together. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most radical thing you can do is stop chasing what you think you want and start appreciating what you don't have to endure. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep seeking wisdom wherever it may hide.